Hello, creative people. Welcome to Creative Conversations. My name is Hollis Citron, and we are so happy that you have chosen to spend this hour with us. So I am owner and founder of I Am Creative and Express Yourself Publishing, and I am on a mission to expand the definition of creativity beyond a pencil and a paintbrush and empower people, especially adults, to own their voice that come in so many different forms. So this space was created to talk with people with all different jobs, hobbies, and interests, and have conversations about experiences and perspectives, all centered around three questions. 1, how do you define creativity? 2, how do you incorporate it into your life? And 3, why do you think it's important? Then we have a free-flowing conversation, and we see where it goes. So I have had the opportunity to talk to musicians, Reiki masters, mediums, doctor, lawyer, real estate agents, and so many more. And these conversations explore the reality that creativity is not cute, it is necessary. People have defined creativity as their soul's essence, courage, imagination, basically all that we are and want to be. So sharing these stories expands one's thinking and opens up self-expression to feel more empowered, connected, and dare I say, happy. So my inspiring guest for today is Teresa Janzen. Teresa empowers the weary, worried, and wounded to experience God's radical abundance in work, life, and relationships. She is a storyteller, writer, speaker, coach, and host of the Radical Abundance podcast. Teresa, welcome to the space.
Hey, are you there? Am I here?
You are here.
I think our tutorial was too long ago. I got here and I said, wait, what am I supposed to do?
I know. That's why I'm like, I leave the voice message, but the hands-on always works. And I'm just so glad you're here because you are in a whole other part of the world. And this is the amazing part of technology. So I'm so glad we could connect.
It is. Yeah, thanks. I'm so excited to be here. And I have no idea why my name is what it is. That's weird too. But I'm here. Whatever. I may be having an identity crisis, but I'm here.
When you sign on to Podbean, it gives you some random bunch of letters unless I don't even know. You have to personalize it. But whatever, you are here. And Teresa, you have such an incredible story. Could you please give people a little bit more information about yourself?
Oh, wow, Hollis, my story is long because I'm getting old. I don't know.
But no, you're not. You're gaining more wisdom.
There we go. Well, if that's how it's judged, I have plenty of that, I'll tell you. Well, yeah, I do live in South Sudan, which for those who don't know is located in East Africa. Even though it's called South Sudan, it's in East Africa. But I'm not from East Africa originally. I've lived here about 6 years now. Originally, I'm from Michigan in the United States, and it was too cold there, so I decided to find somewhere warmer, and Africa fit that bill, I'll tell you. Well, I'm what a lot of people traditionally call a missionary. That's kind of the old term that people used to use. What I don't even know what a good new term is, but I'm a person who's here trying to do what I can to help. And I lived in the United States a long time, had a career there that was really very satisfying and in nonprofit administration. And then, we visited South Sudan one time in 2012, and it really just stole our heart. And they say that once you drink from the River Nile, you will never be satisfied with anything else. And while I haven't literally drunk from the River Nile, there is something that happens when the African soil gets on your feet. It doesn't ever quite wash off. So that's where I live today. I work for a local organization here that's led by South Sudanese. I'm one of the few Westerners, I guess you could call it, who work here at the organization, just filling gaps, doing what I can to build the capacity of the people who are really invested in their country. So that's a little bit about me. We do have a pack of kids in the United States. There's eight kids scattered around North America and 11 grandchildren, and they're fabulous. We're grateful that they live in beautiful places we can go and visit.
I love that you said we have a pack of kids. That's scattered around.
Well, a pack, a herd, I don't know, a litter. I don't know what you said, but there's 8 of them. I'm so that's more than a 6 pack. It's an 8 pack. So
It's true. There we go. There we go. Even better. So, yeah, this conversation is
yeah.
going to be really rich and really wonderful. And I look forward to diving
Uh-huh.
in and learning more about. But we are going to start with our would you rather question. So,
Okay.
here we go. So, Teresa, would you rather be a superhero or a sidekick?
Oh my goodness. I have to say, I'm a total superhero. Uh, Definitely. When I was a little girl, I really wanted to be Wonder Woman, not just because of the, cool outfit and the, metal bra and stuff like that, but, she's amazing.
She is. She is pretty badass. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know if you were going to add something else to that. So, yeah, she
No,
was. Yeah.
I don't know what else there is to, and, frankly, I am, even though I'm, believe in servant leadership and things like that, I also am such a little bit of a center stage kind of person. I don't know if you
Mhm.
can tell that or not, but
Mm.
I really do appreciate people who are sidekicks, and they're so valuable because they're the ones who really make the superheroes look good. It's not even the superheroes. But
Mhm.
I just am not very good at it. I have to be super intentional, but it
Mhm.
isn't. It's really good for me though when I do get to be the sidekick, because it's just such an area of growth for me, and I think it's good for everyone to occasionally do something that's outside their comfort zone. But if I get to choose, let me be the superhero.
Yeah, yeah. Love it. Such a great explanation, and it's true. It's that that spotlight thing, or wanting
Hmm.
to just, I don't know, for me it's sometimes it's like I just want to do it, and I want to be in the driver's seat, and I want to, and at certain points like I get it from my kids. They'll look at me and they're like, "Mom," I'm like, "Sorry. Let me just step
Yeah.
back. I need to step back. I'm sorry. I need to
Right.
control the situation," or yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but what's funny is, when we first moved here to Africa, we were kind of front and center of the work that we do. And it was, we were the ones who were in charge of everything. And then that whole system really kind of fell apart through something that happened unexpectedly. And we had to change our role. And so now that I
mm,
serve this organization that I currently serve, there's over 335 South Sudanese who are doing the work, and now I am a sidekick. I'm a back seat kind of
mm.
person. I'm a backseat driver though too, so that's just kind of my personality. But I fill the gaps to let other people
Mm,
do what they need to do, and I build the capacity. And as quickly as I can, I teach someone else to do what I do and hand it off and get out of the way. And
mm.
so it's been really, really good for me, and I think it's good for everyone to do that sometimes.
Yes, yes. That is really a powerful thing that you just said, actually. Um, to hand it off and get out of your own way and get out of the
Yeah.
way and be a listener and see what is needed. Because when you come into a new
Hmm.
country, and if you're like, oh, I have all these ideas and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, they look at you and be like, who are you? Like,
Yeah, exactly. And then you find out why all the things that you thought were the greatest thing ever, why it doesn't necessarily work in a different context. And yeah,
mm,
I did that year one in South Sudan. I for sure had all sorts of ideas. And fortunately, everyone has survived my being wrong. But and I've learned a lot.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's great. I'm
So
writing down that down.
anyway,
Everyone
yeah.
has survived my being wrong. There we go. I think that's your quote of the
So
day.
far.
That's your quote so
Oh,
far, is
great.
that I pick a quote from
All
everybody's, and
right.
that's,
That's a
yeah.
great one.
So far that's a really good one. Okay, so we just started. So okay, so let's dive into the first official question, which is, Teresa, how do you define creativity?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I've been thinking about this a lot. And, creativity to me is really part of who I am. And actually, in my opinion, who we are as human beings. And the reason why I do feel like it's not something, I'm not one who says you're either creative or you're not. You're creative, period. End of statement. Because everyone has creativity woven in to who they are as a human being. Now you have to remember, I'm a person of faith, so I come at this from a faith perspective, and this is foundational to my faith. Okay, so much so that, you know, and I'm a person of Christian faith, so the Bible is my text, and it begins with, "In the beginning, God created." First sentence in the book. And you know, the first sentence of any book, you know, I'm a writer too. The first sentence is the most important sentence in the book. You got to hook the reader. So, in the beginning, God created. Then a little bit later, you know, when God makes man, he creates man in his image, which means that man was created to be creative. That's why creativity is absolutely foundational to my faith and foundational to my identity as a human being. And is foundational to who I see other people being also. So when I look at another human being, I see someone who is created in the image of the God that I serve, and I see that person as being creative, even if they don't even know it yet. You know, some people don't know that they're creative, but they are.
Mm. Thank you. And yes, exactly. That is why I created this space. That is why, so being an art teacher for 30 years carries, the weight of, well, of course you're creative. You went to art school, you teach art, you do all this, you fall under that category, of course. But what I had been saying for 30 years of teaching was, it goes beyond drawing and painting. That it was
Oh yeah.
really about getting people to connect with what empowers them and what lights them up and how they express themselves. So within my space, if it was, an art class and all this kind of thing, I was always trying to push people to think, to meet them where they're at and to connect with them with what their interests are. So for all the people that were like, I really
Right.
don't want to be here, I just have to take this credit. I'm like, okay, I get it, but you're here. So what do you like?
Right.
Like, do you like music? Do you like clothes? Do you like sports? Do you like shoes, sneakers? Do you like, what do you like? And
Mm-hmm.
let's explore from there. And then as soon as they would hear things like that, they'd get really excited and then open up more and have more conversations and be more expressive.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there are so many other options, because if it was just about art, I am not a very artistic person at all. I've learned a little bit, seventh grade art class. I don't know if I had another one or not. I never went out of my way to take
Mhm,
an art class.
mhm.
I've done some of those painting parties, you know, I
Uh-huh.
really love those, because you just follow instructions, and you come out with something and you're like, wow, you know, I give them to my kids actually. When you know, those painting party paintings, I give those paintings to my children who are now adults. They have their own home, and it's payback for all those many pictures I had to put on my refrigerator. You know, all those years. Now they have to put my stuff on their walls or find a place to put it. It's great payback.
I love that. It's payback.
Yeah, well, none of it has been museum worthy, that's for sure. But you know, it's not so bad. I think, you know, but what do I know? Because I'm not an artistic person, but I'm a creative person. And I talked
Yes.
about, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, and those things. I'm a host of a podcast, you know, and that's creative. I mean, even the idea of creating this space that you've created about creativity, the act of creating the space was a creative process. And even people who do things that I don't think are interesting, but they think it's interesting, you know, that's incredibly creative. I imagine even people who like do bookkeeping, CPAs, that's not my thing, because it's highly detailed and you have to make sure everything balances. But I've talked to some of them and they love that. And for them, it's super even creative to get all of those numbers doing the things that they're supposed to do. And I'm like,
Ex-
cool. I'm
ex-
glad
ex-
that does it for you. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's about when you were talking about my painting isn't that great. And for me, it's about the experience. So it's not about the end
Mm,
product per se. It's about going through the experience and having fun with it, having not fun with it, whatever it is, like you're realizing things,
right.
you're connecting, you're seeing contrast in, skills, things that you want to learn, things that you really don't care about learning. It's just about being in that experience.
Hmm.
And exactly what you said about, people who work with numbers, people who are in sales, people who are in, it's a matter of,
Hmm.
it's all a creative outlet, because I define it as that, because you're using this skill set in order to create something that went from not existing to existing.
Exactly. And that's what I love about the creative process is that literally you are creating something that would never existed before, or you're maybe transforming something from one thing into another. Before I moved to Africa, I was very involved in like arts and crafts and that type of stuff. And I love it. I don't have a lot of time for it anymore. I do different things to express my creativity. But for years, it started in the seventh grade. They had a guy who came to our school and demonstrated how to spin wool into yarn. And I was captivated by this process. And he showed us how to make a spindle like the Native Americans used to use, which was really just a stick and a potato. So, and just it was a stick with something to add weight. So I went home and stuck a stick through a potato, and I didn't have any sheep, but I had this long haired cat, and so I pulled all the loose hair that I could out of the cat. I did not hurt the cat. Okay, no animals were harmed in this project. But so I pulled all the hair I could out of this cat, and I made about 12 inches of yarn from this cat
Mm.
hair, and I was hooked. Later in life, when I had the wherewithal to buy like a spinning wheel, and then I actually bought sheep, and I bought llamas and Angora rabbits, and I had this little farm of all these woolly creatures. And people asked me, they'd hear I have a farm. They said, "What kind of farm do you have?" And I said, "I have a sweater farm because I don't like make food or anything like that. I just have wool, and I would spin wool into yarn." But that was my passion, was creating the yarn and the colors and the twist and all of these beautiful things. But I wasn't the one to do anything with the yarn. Most people think of yarn as an ingredient for the creative process, but for me, the yarn was the creative product that I produced, and then someone else took what I created and created something else with it, and I'm
Mm.
blown away by that whole process. It
Mm.
knits us together, if you will. Ha ha! How's that?
There we go. It's like a quilt. It's
Yeah.
what you just said, which I really love, is like it started from a seventh grade class where you were inspired, and it was such simple material.
Hmm.
So here they were tying in, cultural, they were tying in history. So you were learning more in that, the context, and then you were like, wow, well, it's just like a potato and the stick, and so I can do that. And you got excited. So it's those moments, it's those sparks where it starts from that. And
Hmm.
then it just
Yeah.
grows from there, and it turns into this whole aspect of you having a farm. And I really would
Oh,
love for, yeah, go ahead.
it became a huge part of my life. The funny thing is once I actually learned about the art and craft of spinning, I learned that actually spinning cat hair is one of the most difficult fibers to work with.
Mm.
Now, if someone had told me up front that you can't do this because it's hard, you can't start here because it's hard, and people don't start here, maybe I never would have done it. And what a loss that would be. Can we just eliminate the word can't from our vocabulary? And can we just try and see what happens? And you have to lower the expectation bar a bit too, because the other thing that gets people caught off guard is they think that you have to be good at something right away. And you
Mm.
don't have to be good at something right away. In fact, you're not probably going to be good
Mm-hmm.
at something right away. Even if you are a genius in that area, if you don't begin somewhere, you will never even know that you're a genius in that area until you begin and grow and develop. That's part of the creative process, is growing and developing.
Oh my God, do you hear that, everybody? Do you hear that? That is such gold right there. And I love that you said eliminate the cant that you found out the whole thing with cat hair, because it is so true. Because what we don't
Hmm.
know, what we're naive about, we're like, oh yeah, let me just work with what I have. Here you went home and you're like, work with what I have. I have a long haired cat. Let's get some extra hair and work from
Right.
that. And it's just what you did and you figured it out. And it's so true
Hmm.
because words are so key. You are so right. If somebody said that's really hard to start with cat hair, then you would have been like, oh, I wouldn't start with that.
Right. And I don't have a sheep, so what am I going to do? You know?
Right. Right. You work with what you
That's
have.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So
Oh.
let's dive in a little bit more about this journey. There's just so many things from our pre-chat that we talked about that I just love. I'm picking, let's see, like cultural mindsets and perspectives. Since you are in
Mm.
a whole other country, let's kind of dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, here in South Sudan, people have their own idea of what is creativity, and I do really enjoy seeing what they do. And the funny thing is that some of the things that they do that's really creative, in my opinion, they just see it as, well, this is normal. These women weave these baskets, and to them that's utilitarian, and to me it's a beautiful craft. But then there's other things that they do that just is an expression of their culture. They really like needlework here and embroidery, and that's something that, wow, that takes a lot of time. I really like instant gratification. So even when I did start knitting and stuff like that, I used big chunky yarn because I want to produce something quickly. I'm not the
Mm.
person to use the teeny tiny stuff. And so they do this hand embroidery, and they'll embroider sheets, for the bed, and that's like a something that they use as a special gift to someone that they're honoring, or
Mm.
and it's a big wedding gift that a bride will give her husband, is a sheet for the bed, but she ties it around him like a toga. I guess most Americans might know that, and then that's part of the wedding dance. But um, yeah, but the other thing that happens in a country like South Sudan, South Sudan is one of the least developed countries in the world, and it's gone through a lot of hardship lately, and people end up in this survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, unfortunately, one of the first things that tends to go when you have to eliminate things from your activities, your daily activities, tend to be those things that may be considered luxury, like your creativity, the things that you're creating. And what I've noticed is that it can suck the joy out of life. And now you're going from what was a beautiful, vibrant, joyous culture, and now we're faced with the hardships of economic decline and even war and famine and floods and things like that, and illnesses, and you don't think any longer about the creativity because you're in survival mode. And
Mm-hmm.
so to me, then you have to try and get in a mindset as quickly as possible, because like I said, being creative is foundational to who we are as human beings. And we were not created to suffer. We were not created to survive. We were created for this radical abundance of life. And that's why I talk about radical abundance. That's what I've named my podcast, is Radical Abundance. Abundance of what? And I'm not talking about money. In fact, I've never talked about money on my show yet. Maybe someday I will. But I'm talking about a radical abundance of life. That's what we are created for. And so we have to move from the survival that happens because we live in a broken world. And so how can we mend that brokenness? And you know what? That even is part of the creative process. And we
Yeah.
have to encourage one another when we are in that downcast state. You have to come alongside of another person who's just down and say, okay, how can we move forward from here? And anytime you're asking the question, how, you're in creative mode because you're looking for solutions, you're
Exactly.
looking for a path that leads to a different place. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
because
so
that's what,
I
as
love
I
it
was
to
listening,
see that. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish your thought.
Okay, yeah, no. Yeah, so I love to see that now the country is becoming more stable in some ways. There's still plenty of hardship. You know what? This whole world has plenty of hardship to go around. But I get so excited when I start to see events happening at the cultural center, poetry readings and music and dance and people selling, handicrafts on the side of the street and things like that, because you didn't see that just even a couple of years ago. And
Mm.
the young people coming out with the songs, the drama, they really love any type of drama, singing, music, dancing, all of that. It goes all night. I have neighbors that, I don't know, they must have a lot of family celebrations, and here your family celebrations are top volume all night long, singing and dancing. And it happens most weekends, and I hear it all night.
You're like, yay, can you be quiet, please?
Right. I'm waiting for my invitation. If I at least got an invitation to come over, but it would be
Right.
something. Yeah.
So much of what you said.
Oh.
So I really appreciate. Well, let me go back to the first part where you said uh, what people consider utilitarian and what it's the different perspectives.
Mm.
So I think that's so
Yeah.
important to point out because it's so true. It's like the woven basket. It's just what's done because it carries things, but there's such a craft and a beauty in these constructed
Hmm.
objects because they stand alone. Like you can look at that and be like,
Right.
wow, look at the colors, look at the textures, look at all of that
Hmm.
went into making it. Look at the time. Like she didn't
Yeah.
go to Target to buy it. She actually made it. She created it or he created
Right.
it with their own hands. And there's something to be said for the hands-on process. But within
Hmm.
spaces, it's like, what's the big
Exactly.
deal? We do this all the time. We don't have Target nearby. We don't have like this kind of thing nearby. And it's
Right.
just it's what you do.
Yeah, and there's no Hobby Lobby to even go out and buy like the reeds already done. So if they're going to weave a basket out of grass, you know where they get the grass? You know, outside where the grass actually grows. They don't go to the craft supply store, and so they're starting from the natural product. And a lot of the things that they make too are repurposed items, and so they'll take apart. Like even plastic bags, and I don't even know what they make some things out of. So if your project that you're making needs a cord, first you make the cord from whatever, it could be from shopping bags or something like that, and they make the cord and then they make the item that they're making.
So again, it's
And
the
so it's
problem
it's really something,
solving.
because there is no, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and to them, they just see it as a normal thing they do. But I think they're starting to, the young people especially, are starting to see this is part of our culture. And of course, creativity, art, oftentimes is an expression of a culture. And
Mhm.
but I like to see it even as an expression of individual human beings, and then how that comes together collectively as a culture. Where's the meaning individually, and then where's the meaning collectively?
Mhm.
Because it brings different layers to it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Which I love what you said about the needlepoint and the tradition with a
Hmm.
wedding and there's such beauty in those moments where it's this handmade thing that takes time. It takes our time. It's not going and buying a gift card and it's things of this is my time, this is my love that I am putting
Hmm.
into this space. And I actually wanted to ask like when they're creating that embroidery sheets, is that an individual thing or is that a community or a family thing that participates in that?
Yeah, so it's actually so much embroidery happens for a wedding, and it is definitely a big family community, all the friends involved, because the bride will make one for the groom, and I'm not sure how many people are actually involved in the making of that big one, but then also the bridesmaids each make one for the groomsmen. And that's part of the wedding dance too. So when the bride gives hers to her husband and ties it on, then the bridesmaids all tie the little toga around the groomsmen, and then they all dance. And then the other thing that happens is the guests at the wedding oftentimes will receive like a little handkerchief sized one that has embroidery in the corner, like a little flower. I'm not talking like monogram, something simple. I'm talking like a flower that's a lot of color and detail in the corner of that handkerchief sized. I don't, I don't know if they use them for napkins or for. I think it's more like here they like to put those on the furniture, like on the
Mm.
arms of the furniture or the back of the furniture, like my grandmother used to do. But they like to decorate the homes with it, and I
Mm.
have a few of them from weddings that I've attended. But they're to me they're such treasures because I know someone sat and made it, and I see women who are just sitting around and they're working on it for hours and hours, and they're
Mm.
investing that into the celebration of their wedding. And the ones I have are very special to me because they came from when I joined in that celebration for someone else, and
Mm.
it's very fun.
I love that word celebration, which ties
Mm,
into you talking about radical abundance, because when you said it's
mm.
life, it's it's how we show up in life, and celebrations for me, I'm really starting to become more cognizant and aware of the moments. It's, not to sound too cheesy, everybody, but it really is in those moments of when you just are hanging out with a friend or a family member or your loved one, and you're just talking or not talking, but you're actually in that moment together, or you're laughing, or whatever the circumstance is. It's really being aware of those moments.
Yeah, yeah. And I think where we connect with each other as human beings, and I know that's been hard for people lately. One of my friends on social media recently asked, where's your happy place? Where's your favorite place to be? And I have a lot of happy places, but the first thing that popped into my mind was on the end of my mother's couch, cup of tea in hand. That's my happy place, and we don't have to do anything. We just are there together just to be in one another's company. And I do like it when like that picture of women who are sitting together and embroidering or doing beadwork. Beadwork here is a major thing also. That's some of the people groups. Beads are their big thing. And they just sit around and do bead stuff, and it's amazing to do when you're creating together in a group. Now I do a lot of writing, so writing is oftentimes very solitary. That's a totally different experience, but
Mm.
it also is very personal to me and even very spiritual to me when I'm writing.
Mm. So let me get back to, we're going to dive into more about how you incorporate creativity in, but I'm curious that when people are in this communal space of creating, is there food involved? Is there a lot of conversation involved, music involved, or, I'm sure it varies, but I'm curious.
Yeah, food is something that's oftentimes involved here in South Sudan, but it's not even very possible for a Westerner to understand how it goes. Hospitality is very important here. And so that cup of tea and offering what you have to whoever when they come to your home is very important. And I learned even when I first moved to South Sudan, talking about those first cultural mistakes you make, I remember one time we received some guests. They came and we were standing together, and while we were standing, my husband says, would you like something to drink? Well, everyone was looking at each other, and I'm like, okay, we've done something wrong, but we don't know what we've done wrong. Yeah, and that we know that look a lot. So I had to later ask, okay, what did we do wrong? And so there were several things actually in that simple statement. One was you don't You don't ever ask someone if they would like something to drink. It's assumed that they need something to drink. And then the number two is you don't do it while they're standing ever. You have to first you get your guests settled somewhere. There you have to they're seated, and then you bring something to drink, tea or the very minimum water, something. Um, but you don't ask, you offer. And you don't offer with a question. You almost insist. Here, drink this. You tell them. And
There's
you
no
don't do it while they're
choice in the
standing.
matter.
No, there's no choice. Well, that's a funny thing because it's a language thing. When I first moved here, everyone was always telling me what to do all the time, and I was so, from my perspective, was just annoying. Then I learned about the language, and again, as a person who really, words are important to me, and that's my number one creative thing today is the craft of words. And but everyone's always saying, do this, move here, sit there, eat this, all the time. And then I learned that in many of the local languages here in South Sudan, and there's like 60 different local languages in South Sudan, but many of them, all of their verbs are in the imperative. There's not, and many of them don't have a word for please. That's something other than begging, So there's no please have a seat, it's sit. And it's not would you like to sit, it's sit, and it's not would you like to eat, it's eat, and so because that's how their language worked, and they went to that's how the English here has developed, and English is the national language, so no one can say that it's the wrong way, it's their language, but their language is developed differently that look a little odd for someone coming from the outside. So I made a list of 10 lessons I learned in my first year in South Sudan, and right at the top of that list was, when you're offended, assume you've misunderstood. And because all the time I could spend my whole time being offended because people are always bossing me around. So I started practicing saying no, because it's totally fine to say no. When they tell you to do something, you can decline. That's totally fine and acceptable. They can say to eat, and you get no thank you, I'm not hungry, or I ate before I came. That's culturally acceptable. So one time so one time I was in a restaurant in town, and when I say town, I don't mean a town like in the United States. I mean dirt roads. This restaurant was a tin structure with a dirt floor and like wire mesh windows, so no glass window. Okay, but I'm in this restaurant and I'm sitting near the window, this wire mesh window, and a storm is coming, and you can kind of see the clouds forming, and the rain is happening in the distance, and the server, the waitress, comes to me and she says, "Move here." And she points to an area further away from the window. She tells me to move, but I'm practicing saying no. So
Wrong time to say no.
exactly. You already know how to. So I said, "No, thank you. I'm fine here." And I stayed where I was. And then, yes, that storm came, and I had to, after I hit by the first few raindrops. All right, and I moved my chair exactly where she had told me to sit. So,
That's hysterical. But it's like, I am going to practice. I'm going to stand at my feet flat on the ground and say, no. Okay,
right.
you're right.
Right, exactly. I tell you, living cross culturally is so good for a person because you learn a lot of humility. You learn to laugh at yourself. Don't take things so seriously, and just enjoy something different. So I hope everyone has the opportunity to live cross culturally, or in most places you can seek out a cross cultural experience without ever leaving town. So do it.
So important. God, there's so much.
Mhm.
I guess I have to ask this before we move on, and I want to learn more about how you incorporate more creativity into your own life. But I guess I just wanted to ask about, like, when you said there's no word for please.
Mm.
So in it, So how did I want to say that? So I wrote down intention and then a question mark. Um,
Mm.
is it so when somebody's saying something, um, forget it. I knew it and then it went out of my head.
How do you, yeah, it's
I
a really funny thing to even ask for something or anything. It tends to be a little bit of a around the block kind of a communication. You just, like some things, like if it's pass the salt, you'd say pass the salt instead of please pass the salt, at the
mhm,
table. But if you're
mhm.
making a request, like I don't even know, like to dinner on Saturday, again with the maybe why where I'm inviting you. It's been a long time since I've seen you and your husband, and we have, I don't know, you just begin this whole process, and it eventually
Yeah.
comes around to coming to dinner on Saturday. you know
Oh my gosh. Yes. Thank you for kind of
yeah.
understanding me in my lack of words. So, okay. So let's hear more
Yeah.
about you and how you incorporate creativity. And I know that writing is one of your huge things, but yeah, whatever you
Mm.
want to share with us in that aspect would be great.
Yeah. So I have been a writer for a lot of years, but I started out as what I to call a technical writer, because I worked in nonprofit administration when I lived in the United States. So I would write, like fundraising letters. I would write, news stories, sharing what the, organization had done and things like that. And that type of writing, oftentimes I was writing for other people. I would write a letter, but it wasn't my name at the bottom of the letter. It was someone
Mm,
else's, like president's or whatever, name it. And so, um, but when I moved to South Sudan, my writing shifted to what I call narrative nonfiction. And so I started writing from a place of telling the story of what I'm experiencing in South Sudan, but a lot of it was for myself. In fact, the very first story that I wrote was a really hard story. It happened when I was visiting someone who had, one of the things that I did when I lived in the village. I now live in the capital city, but when I lived in the village, when a woman had a baby, I would take a gift to the home, a little hat that I knit myself, and then some soap and washcloth, practical little things. And I heard one of my friends, her daughter in law was expecting, and I knew the baby was coming soon. And I actually had heard that the baby had arrived, and she lived at the hospital compound, which is actually where I had to go to check my email. It was the only place with Wi-Fi anywhere. So I went
mhm.
to the hospital compound and was checking my Wi-Fi, but I forgot to bring the gift. And so I told my friend Rhoda, I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot the gift, but I'll come back later this afternoon and I will bring it for the baby." And while I was checking my
You're
scream
kind of going in and out.
from outside, and I knew instantly what had happened. I jumped out of my seat, the chair was playing, and I ran across the couch into
Wait,
the
Teresa,
home
hold on.
where my
You're
friend
going in
Rhoda
and
was
out. Teresa,
holding
hold on. You're
her to side. It was
Teresa, can you hear me?
such a difficult thing, and it was, hours. She turned in and she actually placed this baby in my hands, and no, nothing that can describe that. But when I packed up hours later, and what I had experienced,
Ter-
I just up on my lap, couldn't see anything because I'm crying. I just started the story. And that was really kind of my first experience sharing a hard story in writing. Now, that particular story has never been published. It's too hard of a story. It was something that I used to process my grief at the time. And sometimes creativity does not have to ever become public. It can always be something that's personal.
Mm.
And there's always that there was in my heart. I started learning the craft of sharing a hard story that has benefit for others. And so since that time, last year, I've contributed to a few different pieces of collections, collaborative works, where I share a story from my life, something that was transformational. And it's never, when you look at your life, it's never those really great times, those times when you come first place, when you do really wonderful, when people stand and cheer you. Those tend to not be the transformational times in your life, right? It's usually when you're in the gutter and you feel lousy and things are horrible and there's no hope. But when that hope comes and you find the life that comes after that really terrible experience that you go through, then for me, I've learned then to write about it can help someone who's still in that stage of wondering if there's any hope. And so that when someone can read my story and say, wow, she survived, she grew, she whatever, whatever the result was, maybe there's hope for me. And so that's the idea behind a narrative nonfiction. It's different than your traditional self-help type of nonfiction, because I write from a place of experience, sharing my personal story, but not in a way that it's all about me. This isn't the time for the superhero. This is the time for the humble walking this
So wait,
path.
Teresa, hold on. You're
Hmm.
going in. You're going in and out.
Oh,
So,
wow, sorry.
yeah, I've been trying to say, yeah.
Ah.
So I hear most of what you're saying, but when you were telling that amazing story about going to the hospital and the baby, like you cut out. So,
Oh
um,
man.
yeah. So
Wow.
that's what. So so let me just say. So did she lose the baby? Is that what
She
happened?
did. The baby,
She
yeah.
did.
So when I came in the room, the baby had died, and so
Mm-hmm.
she turned and she put that baby in my hands, and that was it.
Mm,
For me, it was such an emotional moment, but it was also a sign that the community had completely accepted me
mm,
as one of their own, because you don't place your grandchild in a stranger's hand. So it was this really difficult thing. And so the way I processed that, though, was through my writing. So did you hear
right.
that part?
I heard you say that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what had happened, and that's how I processed the grief. And that story has not been told. It has not been published. It's a very hard story, and I don't know that it ever will be published, because it was more for me than anyone. But other stories that I've learned to tell that are also hard and humbling, but can also bring hope to someone, though, who's going through that hard and humbling time and they haven't come through it, because I'm on the other side of it now.
Right.
And so I can represent hope. So I don't know how much of that you heard. And
Yeah.
sorry for the Wi-Fi. It's welcome to Africa. This is how it is.
The fact that it's happening is just amazing, like I said in the beginning. So,
Yeah. I
yeah, so
hope it wasn't too disruptful. I'm so sorry.
it's okay. It's okay. And I'm grateful to those listening here live. I want to acknowledge you. Thank you so much for being here. And any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat box where we can see
Mm,
them. So, so much of you said, I love that aspect about writing. It's so true. That it's cathartic, and especially pointing out the part that not everything in a creative process needs to be public. Um,
yeah.
we do things for ourselves in order to express ourselves, to release, to grow, to expand, and it doesn't have to be for any other eyes. Or, like you said, when you feel like it could be of help to someone else, or you want to release it and have others see it, but it's not about being the superhero and saying, look at me. It's about, look, it's just about, okay, I release it and I want to make this public. I want it to be seen, but I
Right.
don't care what other people think. I don't care. It's not for those purposes. It's just literally releasing it to the universe in a bigger way.
Right. Yep. That also has value for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about, so writing is a big thing. Is there anything
Mhm.
else that you want to talk about in ways? I mean, obviously, in ways that you bring your services to what you do is an incredibly creative
Mm.
process, but I'd love to hear it from your, and photography. I think photography is something for you too as well.
Yeah, so funny thing about photography is, yeah, I was when one of those times in life where I was going through something really difficult and a kind of a recovery type of journey out of a pit, you know, uh, I was encouraged to take up some type of activity, and they had said like painting or drawing. Well, we've already covered the fact that that's not my thing. Maybe it could be if I worked at it, but honestly, I've just never really worked at it enough. So I decided, well, I can't draw a beautiful painting, but maybe I can take a picture of beautiful things. And so that's when I started photography and really enjoyed it quite a lot. And then actually, I learned to take my photography a step further because, wow, what an amazing world we live in today where you can not just snap a picture like back in the day when I did, and they have the film developed and there, ta-da, you get what you get,
Right,
we
right.
have all these wonderful digital tools. And so when I actually studied for my master's degree, I chose to, it's my master's is in instructional design and technology. And one of the reasons I chose that one is because they taught us all of the Adobe products. And so I learned Photoshop. I cried the first time I took Photoshop. I actually took it twice to learn, to really learn.
Oh my God, it
Um,
stresses me out. Yeah.
Oh my word, it was hard. But once I got it, then I had so much fun taking a photo that I could take a pretty nice photo. But then to take it and turn it into something else, that was a lot of fun. And combine things and layers and to create a message, to send a message that's just visual. I think that's incredible. And there are people who are far more gifted at it than I am. I would definitely call myself a hobbyist in that area, but I do really appreciate it when people really do a nice a job with those visual arts. And visual arts aren't my big thing. I do really appreciate it. I love music, but you don't want to hear me sing, that's for sure.
But it's
I
fun.
actually, yeah. Well, I don't know. I did one of those DNA tests one time, and do you know there's actually a gene, and in my gene it says more likely than average to be tone deaf. And I said, well, that explains a lot.
Are you
So
serious?
seriously, I'm totally serious, Hollis. I would not joke about that.
Oh my God,
Yeah, it
that's
says
so
more likely
funny.
than average to be tone deaf. So, wow, my
That's hysterical that it can actually, I never heard that it can actually go
yeah,
down to your DNA in that case.
it
But it,
yep, it's
but
there.
but saying that, it's, and I've said this on multiple podcasts, but my daughter and I just, it's our thing where we just, she acts like she puts her hand out like I'm singing into a microphone. And when
Mhm.
I'm driving, we just turn up the music and just sing, and we suck. And it's just fun. We're just, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. She takes my hand like, I'm like, babe, I'm driving, and she'll take my hand
Yep.
and she'll sing into it, and yeah, it's for the purposes of fun and to entertain
Yeah.
anybody that might be at the light next to us because we're dancing too. So
There you go. So my daughter and I, we have a tradition where if you happen to say a phrase that comes from a song,
yeah.
then you start instantly singing that song. And my children all learned long ago not to, when we go order ice cream at the ice cream shop, they have the flavor called Blue Moon, and
Oh
that will
no.
I will sing, I guarantee it. Nobody orders Blue Moon ice cream anymore. But
That's so funny.
I don't know if your listeners are old enough to even know that song, but
Yes,
oh
yes,
boy.
yes, multi ages, but it's, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it just makes you smile, and I have to acknowledge the photography aspect of things. I think
Mm,
photography is so important. It's just, our eyes are lenses, literally, and
mhm.
it's, we don't know, we could all be looking in the same direction but be taking a picture of a different thing, and whether we're looking close up or zooming out to get more of a picture of everything that's around, or whatever it is, it's just, photography is always amazing to me because of that aspect of what people see.
Mhm. You know how relevant photography is to our life is absolutely everybody has a pretty awesome, camera right in their pocket nowadays, you know? And whoever would have thought to combine a telephone and a camera together? And that tells you how much we really appreciate those visual arts. And everyone has the opportunity now to do something. And you have a ton of editing tools right at your fingertips.
It's true. It's right there.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my
then of
gosh.
course social media, my goodness, except Instagram doesn't like me because they are prejudiced against people in Africa. At least me, they keep shutting me down so I can't even enjoy it. So
Really?
yeah, really, they've shut me down 4 times thinking that someone in Africa is hacking my account. And I keep trying to contact them and tell them it's not someone in Africa, it's me in Africa, you know?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, so I've chosen Pinterest as my
Hmm.
brand new baby Pinterest page. It's very infantile, but I'm trying to do something visual because I do appreciate those visual arts and I really do miss Instagram. But all right, I had to bless and release them to go their own way because they don't want to be in relationship with me and I'm not about to force them. So
Well, Pinterest is huge too.
it
It really
is,
is.
yeah.
But before we get to
Yeah.
that, I want to tie this up because we're almost at the top of the hour. So I want to
Mm.
get this third question in, which is a little repetitive, but reinforcing. Why do you think creativity is important?
Yeah, I have to go right back to that foundational thing that I talked about. Of course, from my perspective, is I believe that it's part of who we are meant to be. And we are all designed as human beings to express ourselves and to be creative. We were created to be creative. And I think that it is so healing as part of our journey, as part of our development, it's part of learning. It's absolutely foundational to the human experience, in my opinion, because you learn so much, even from trying to create and failing. You learn, or in your eyes, maybe failing, but maybe you try to create something and it turns into something else, or it turns into a learning experience. Those things happen too, and all the variety of creating. And I think that then we can begin to appreciate the variety of humanity. We tend to look at humans quite externally, really, and judge people based on their appearance and from the outside. But when you are looking at the creation that a human being has created, and you maybe don't see that person, then you can actually begin to experience what's inside of that person from based on what they've created. And it takes time to actually experience something fully, and it takes time to experience another human being fully. And we tend to be real quick to judge, real quick to think we know something. I think we need to slow down and just experience each other and experience life a little bit more.
Oh my gosh. There was so much power in so much of what you just said. The
Oh.
variety of humanity, we're moving too fast basically. Experience when people are creating, it's seeing them from the inside, not the outside.
Mm-hmm,
And really slowing down to experience seeing them,
mm-hmm.
to seeing that there is so much power in that. We got to stop moving so fast. We got to take in those
Yeah.
moments and whew, take in the moments.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Teresa, can you please tell people how they can find you?
Yeah, so you can find me. My website has links to everything. So it's teresajanzen.com, but I spell my Jansen with a Z, or we say Z here. So TeresaJanzen.com. And then look for the Radical Abundance podcast on YouTube and on just about all the other podcasting things. You can, if you search either my name or Radical Abundance, I hope you find it. If not, go to my
Hmm.
website and tell me you couldn't find it. But yeah, it should be out there.
Mm. Gosh, Teresa, I really thank you so much for hanging out with me for this hour. I really, really
Oh,
enjoyed
well,
learning from you and chatting with you.
Hollis, I had such a great time. Thank you so much for inviting me and putting up with my African Wi-Fi and all that stuff.
It's good. It's good. It's like there's beauty in all of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to thank you, and I want to thank the listeners, those here with us live, those catching the replay. Thank you so much for taking this hour to listen. I know you could be doing lots of things with your life, and really happy that you chose to spend it with us. This space is all about inspiring each other, sharing stories, and connecting. So please like, follow, share, so we can lift each other up. I believe we've always needed this, but we need it now more than ever, to just spread the goodness. So there we go. So I wish you a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, wherever you are in this world, and look forward to talking again soon. So goodbye, everybody. Feeling inspired? There are so many ways to do things for you, to get yourself moving, to get your creative juices flowing, and to have fun. Check out I Am Creative and Express Yourself Publishing. Go to iamcreativephilly.com, iamcreativephilly, PHILLY.com, and check out the experiential kits. Check out Creative Shui, which is all about creative inspiration and guidance. And for Express Yourself Publishing, there's so many multi-author book opportunities. So I would love to chat with you so much. Everybody's creative. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has an expression, and I can't wait to meet you. Thank you so much for taking this hour to listen to our stories and share the energy. And I wish you a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in this world. Bye, everybody.